Welcome back to ECGC, everybody. Our first keynote address of the day. The wonderful Wim Stocks is here. Been a veteran in the industry for, wow, even longer than I have, going back to 1990. So, Wim's worked with Atari, THQ, a lot of these companies throughout the years. He is an absolute veteran and pillar of the industry, and now he serves as an advisor to the Special Olympics. He's running his own esports firms and all kinds of wonderful stuff. But I'm going to let you take it from there and tell everybody all these wonderful things that you've done, Wim. Take it away.
Thanks, Jay. Good morning, everybody, and thank you to the East Coast Gaming Conference for having me. Thrilled to be here and give you more background on all that is happening in the realm of esports. My topic is the sort of the emergence and the importance of localization that is building the next stages for esports. We're going to take you through a number of my learnings and premise, but as well where it's emerging, the direction for esports, how it's started all in the macro at sort of the global level, and now really moving into not only regionalization and localization, but also to neighborhoods. The notion of esports becoming hyper-localized is part of what will propel esports and take it to the next stage. This is me. I'm as noted, I've been in the gaming business for as Jay mentioned, quite some time. I've been largely on the publishing side of the business, meaning this is sales, marketing, distribution, licensing. Worked with a number of different companies, both in the larger sense of companies, but also started a few of my own. And in this current realm, we're pivoting out of traditional game publishing into esports. Back in 2009, it was well before the word esports even existed. In fact, I attended an event in San Francisco in the 2000, I think it was 2000, and it was a Street Fighter event in a warehouse in downtown San Francisco. Felt like, while it was an underground event, felt like Fight Club, people coming to play Street Fighter in a competitive setting. And at the time, I didn't even recognize that this was the foundation for really early in the realm of competitive gaming. So, but in 2009, left the traditional publishing games realm and started a platform with two young entrepreneurs who had a great vision about bringing people together via an online platform for competitive gaming, and that was the start of world gaming. Essentially, what we were seeing everywhere was people picking up their Xboxes and getting in cars and driving to hotels to be there for a particular weekend and playing Madden in competitive settings. They'd land their Xboxes together. Everybody put in $100 to play, and if you were one of the early losers, it was not a very good experience. You just packed up your things, you drove for 3 or 4 hours, you just lost $100, you bought a hotel room for 2 nights. And as we saw more of this starting to happen and really people getting more interested in competitive realm, we said we can do this far more effectively with an online platform. So that's essentially what we built back in 2009. We launched as World Gaming in 2010, but quickly pivoted to the Virgin brand, the Virgin Gaming brand. A long story I won't bore everybody with, but Richard Branson saw what we were doing, loved what we were doing. And really, if you know what Virgin does, they take an existing business model, flip it on its head to contemporize it and to make it more relevant and interesting. And that's essentially how we launched the company at E3 in 2010. So really this notion of esports, in fact, when we started the company, that name didn't exist. The word for competitive gaming as esports didn't exist. And I don't want to pat ourselves too much on the back, but in those days, we had a very formative impact on the early days of esports and competitive play, bringing players together and giving them the reason to come together to play competitively and do so via a scalable and accessible platform. As we grew World Gaming, we got involved in the collegiate realm. We bought a small company at the time in 2015 called Collegiate Star League. Now, almost immediately put our foot on the gas to build collegiate esports, which has also had, which I'll touch on in a bit, but you also had a hand in helping esports grow more on a localized basis and also on a regionalized basis. So I'll talk more about that. So as we get into this presentation, what I'm going to attempt to paint for you are the next steps and stages for esports. The fact that the continued maturation and evolution of esports is happening through becoming more regionalized, more localized, and as I said, even more hyper localized. What started in the macro is now growing and changing through becoming very micro and community driven. And when I say communities, I mean it on two levels. First of all, there's the communities that build around games, which is largely digitally driven, but as well, those communities being developed around physical communities and venues and organization for play, again, at a very local, almost a neighborhood level. When you think about the vast infrastructure and defined paths that exist for traditional sports, that same structure has largely been absent for esports and really now is only starting to emerge. So as the infrastructure grows for esports, so will esports. And an important next stage in broadening participation, understanding, and the underlying economics via sponsorships are all happening now at the local level. There's a huge opportunity there, localization. We're going to talk about that and how what we're doing from a company perspective, our new company Belong, is bringing to market. But it's all about bringing more accessibility, more structure, more organization for esports in a hyper-localized way. And our key missions and objectives to harness the local opportunities and energies will take esports to the next stages. So please, next slide. I thought it was important to give everybody, you've probably seen something like this. We're taking this from our friends at Newzoo about the global gaming market. Obviously in 2020, no question fueled by the pandemic and people being anchored at home. The global games market grew 10%. It's a $159 billion business in 2020, projected to go to $170 billion this year. You can see in this slide the various importance and the weight of each of the territories between the U.S. and North America and Canada. We're really close to 75%, 3/4 of the realm for global games market. However, one thing to note is that esports is only a fraction of the global games market. Esports this past year, most figures or most research shows it at $1.7 billion in terms of economics, in terms of audiences. Certainly, audiences continue to grow for esports. You can break it down into enthusiasts as well as the more occasional or casual viewers. But there's no question that what happened in 2020 with the advent of traditional sports broadcasts and events going away, esports really did step in and were elevated as a result of what happened when there were no traditional sporting events around. I remember seeing a Forza event not long after the pandemic hit. Rather than watching a F1 event, I was watching a Forza event. Frankly, couldn't really tell the difference between the two, but those kinds of broadcasts became more common on traditional cable, not just on Twitch or on YouTube, but now on traditional cable, and really did propel esports and awareness of esports in a way that would have taken another 5 to 7 years to get there with the advent of traditional sports going away. there were really no other options to watch anything sporting related unless you watched esports. So the other interesting thing to note is that the demographics of gamers are far more broad than what most sentiment is around gaming. You can see it really does span ages and age groups from youth to into adults. They've been pretty well balanced segmentation between the various age groups. Also, I think a misnomer for many people is that gaming in the macro is largely male. It isn't. If you add in all the different platforms between mobile and PC and as well as Xbox and PlayStation, you can send and other handheld laptops, tablets. Women do comprise nearly half of the audiences on a global basis, both participation as well as viewership. So really great to see what's happening in gaming and really becoming a much broader not only audience but participation as well. So one of the things I want to paint for you here is how esports started in really a global way, but as matured and developed, the importance of it becoming localized and regionalized is not only emerged, it's proven to be crucial. And these are very high level milestones in the maturation of esports in the early days. What this is really a North American and European point of view. Obviously, in Korea and China, esports was predated so much of what was happening in North America by at least a decade, if not two. But in the U.S., in fact, World Cyber Games, which was the first real organization I saw, came out of Korea but was brought over to the U.S. We had meetings with the World Cyber Games team back in 1999 as they were attempting to bring this over to the U.S. But again, was so early that people didn't quite understand it. They did get a couple of events up and operating in Los Angeles. We actually had a title involved in that. We had from my time at GT Interactive, we had a title called Unreal Tournament, very famous now. Unreal Engine, one of the best and most pervasive game engines on the planet. But that was really the first activation in the U.S. short of some of these very, very one-off events that were taking place. In those days, and as we go, MLG, obviously a big formative point for competitive gaming in the U.S. First major tournaments were held on TV as late as 2006. First IEM, the Intel Extreme Masters series with ESL. That was a seminal moment, probably one of the biggest, and still to me, one of my most favorite and best activations around competitive gaming at a global level. But all of these events were very free form. These nomadic teams would pick up and run from event to event. The events themselves were really unpredictable. The major events would be announced 3 weeks before they would take place. Hard to plan, no predictability. Not only hard to plan as a team, but also hard to plan and hard to build audiences when there isn't any predictability and awareness. There were no real geo-specific structures other than the events themselves. The qualifier mechanisms were various. Again, no predictable programming or broadcasts. The economics were largely fueled by endemic sponsors. And even in those days, I think it's safe to say most of these activations were viewed as novelty. That people would say, really, are this is a thing? This competitive gaming is a real thing. And once we got into 2014, and frankly, I don't remember when the word esports was coined. It was probably somewhere in the 2011, 2012 realm. We ran the first big noteworthy event under World Gaming. It was called the EA $1 Million Challenge Series. We had 3 titles coming together: Madden, FIFA, and NHL in a collective. The winners were we're anointed $1 million, and we ran 2 years of that in conjunction with PlayStation and with EA. But that started to really now not only galvanize more awareness for what was happening, but also galvanize competitive players. People who played on the World Gaming platform, the Virgin Gaming platform, raised their hand up. Yep, this is what we want to do. We want to be part of a competitive scene. And Major League Gaming was doing this as well, but doing it really on the pro side of things. I would characterize Virgin Gaming and World Gaming as really the casual or the developmental players, the more amateur side of things. And in parallel between World Gaming, Virgin Gaming, and MLG, we're started to build towards a crescendo to where we're going today. And the big seminal moment there was when MLG was purchased by Activision. And we'll go to the next slide to continue on. So this is now, I'd call it as the more modern era of esports, still so nascent in development, but this is in 2016 when E-League launched happened. Now we're starting to see this was Turner's competitive series. It started with a Counter-Strike series of events where the broadcasts were planned every Friday night from 10 o'clock till 11 o'clock. Now there was starting to come into the esports scene predictability around play. The league still franchises really weren't a thing at that point in time, but at least now the broadcast and the coverage around a major esports competition started to take hold. A big moment that really did help propel esports into the more modern realm for us and for the realm. But really, what started in this time frame was also the franchising model. So Overwatch League really was the first one to announce the fact that there was a league being formed, that their franchises were being sold, that those franchises would be housed in cities, not just in North America, but around the world. And interesting to note that in those early days, and still a dynamic for the most part, that the owners for those teams were traditional sports team owners who had infrastructure, who know what it took to run a team. They know what it takes to sell sponsorships and sell tickets and have venues and sell concessions and sell merchandise, all those things which were largely lacking because there wasn't a franchise model in esports. Not long after Overwatch League, the NBA 2K League was formed, very much a parallel league to the NBA, but doing so around the NBA 2K game, and franchises also established on a city-by-city basis. So here we're starting now to see the advent of this macro structure on a global basis now starting to become much more regional, much more local. League of Legends, LCS was transformed into a franchise model. The 2K League and Overwatch League expansions happened in 2018. More teams coming in to each of the fray. Call of Duty League announced in 2019, had the kickoff event in Minneapolis, where I'm from, last January. And as I started to reference that due to the pandemic, esports replaced traditional sports, and this notion of the franchises taking hold. However, most of the play last year was done virtually and digitally. That's the great news about esports and gaming. So much of it is able to happen virtually, whereas the traditional sporting events obviously all evaporated. Thankfully, all coming back now. But this local presence that is proven to be. There are some people who still don't like the franchise model. I'm a huge believer in it. I think it has not only fostered understanding when people see, or brands see, maybe more importantly, brands see a structure that looks an awful lot like things that they've seen. They know the NBA, they know the NFL, they know Premier League, and when those structures now are similar to what the esports realm has developed and fostered. You may not understand what Overwatch is, you may not understand Call of Duty, but at least you see a structure that makes a lot of sense to you, and that has engendered and garnered so much more understanding. Sponsor opportunities, obviously, as a result of that, have increased dramatically, and so have media right values, as no doubt everyone has seen with the what YouTube paid for the rights to broadcast both the CDL, the Call of Duty League, as well as the Overwatch League. Now hundreds of millions of dollars coming in from media rights as well. So franchise models, I will argue all day long, are not only important to where we've gotten, not only important to how the esports is evolving, but will continue to play out as more localization comes into, and more regionalization, and the fan base is being built in local and regional markets comes to pass. So I also referenced up front that collegiate esports has really had a great hand in how esports is building on a regional basis. When we started CSL in 2015, and we bought CSL in 2015, there was another entity also up and operating, a TESPA organization, which is owned by Blizzard and Activision. They were really focused purely on the Activision and Blizzard properties at that point in time. But the good news is that all of the organization coming for colleges to compete in leagues that, again, started in the macro, started in these leagues forming online, being played online. Not a lot of live event activations. Certainly the teams were getting together on college campuses to practice, but the events themselves were still in the 2011, 2013, 2014 era, still largely absent. There were some really great pioneering programs that were up and running. Robert Morris in Chicago, UC Irvine out on the West Coast, a major benefactor of the school, a computer magnate, so to speak, put a lot of money into helping the school develop a seminal esports program, proved to be highly engaging and very transformative for that school. Harrisburg on the East Coast, often referred to as one of the best esports programs. Right to the Office of the President is supported by and built there. University of British Columbia, we had a lot of involvement with them in the early days, and they built a sizable program. They had 4,000 players in the early days playing on esports clubs and various games. So really college, and as we move into the 2014 to 2018, many more entities coming to bear for collegiate organization, NACE, AVGL, EGF, even the high school league, much broader base of schools, and now schools right to the administration and the athletic departments taking note of what was happening. Energy really starts to build, and even the NCAA starts looking at what the esports realm is all about, and should they weigh in, should they play in the formation of and the organization of esports. I think everyone's aware that they decided to sit out. And in fact, in my former realm at CSL, we were often referred to as the NCAA of esports. But if anything, I want to remember what we did there as the anti-NCAA for esports, just because we weren't focused purely on athletic departments. We were welcoming teams from any genesis that brought them about, from a STEM program in a college to a computer science program. Student life actually was the origin of so many programs on college campuses coming out of the club realm. So the good news is now there is so much in the way of collegiate activation, which is now really also to the point of my talk here, is that bringing more regional presence, more regional loyalty, more regional awareness for what is happening in the collegiate realm. But also, it's very fragmented. There isn't a unifying force. Every publisher essentially becomes their own NCAA for how they invoke college, what their organizations are, and that's going to be reality here for the next few years until a unifying force can bring it all together. But again, the point of this is that collegiate esports is also helping now advance the awareness of esports because it's becoming much more regional, much more local, and a lot more awareness being generated. So in the development of esports, as we've talked about now, where it got a lot of its energy and a lot of its momentum is really at the professional level, and that's a great thing. The professional level is the inspiration that drives so much of what happens on the layers beneath it. No different than traditional sports. You say the game of basketball, it's the top 1% of the participants in that game are the best players in the world. Call it the NBA players, and it's the 99% beneath that layer that are the aspiring pros. But and that dynamic exists in esports. It's no different from what the funnel looks like, and how players are being inspired by getting to the next ranks. Yet there are not a lot of structures in place to help a player get there. Let's go to the next slide. I think this is where it comes all home. So on the left side of the screen, you can see this is, and if any of you played baseball or played hockey or played basketball from your youth days, where is it? It starts at home. You get interested in playing, and this notion of self-discovery. In traditional sports, very well organized structures, like in baseball, it's like Little League, all happening at almost a neighborhood basis, or at least a community basis. Moving up into more competitive youth leagues that, again, very well defined, very well formed. Tryouts run by local park and rec departments. A lot of support for that. There's obviously training and other coaching that can, when you're not playing, that if you really are interested in advancing, that you can take part in and go to a coaching clinic or go to a camp for the summer. Any number of ways to improve your skills outside of actually playing the sport. Once you advance in age, you get into high school. You're playing for your varsity teams, your high school teams. From there, you're good. You'll play at the college level, and again, if you're very good and are aspiring to commit your career to it and have the skills to do that, you'll be part of a professional league, no matter what the sport is. In esports, we have the very bottom bucket where kids are playing games at home. They're getting familiar with the game. They play with their friends. They're getting more involved with the not only the game, but the community of players around the game. But all the in between is still largely lacking. There's an absence of defined structure and infrastructure for localized youth esports. So you might be able to develop a following on streaming platforms, but that's really up to you to figure that out as a player. Limited high school esports starting to happen, but still very, very early in its organization. A lot of high school play, obviously, but how it's being supported and organized at a school level or at a conference level or within even a city or state is largely absent. Very unorganized and disjointed amateur tournaments. They could spring up over the weekend, and people may find out by accident about them, but they then get involved. And then growing still as we went through the college ranks, now growing in a really good way, but still so fragmented and very confusing on many levels. And then there's as we talked there's this macro for esports, but again, largely lacking. All that middle infrastructure that exists for traditional sports is largely lacking. However, one of the things we are doing and we'll be introducing, which I'm going to talk through in a bit, is what we're doing at Belong to build this necessary infrastructure that will enable esports to go to the next level. It will bring more localized activations. I'll use the word again, hyper-localized activations. And through what we're doing in the arenas, through our digital extension, through network, the working with publishers to help them build these structures are a really important part of what we stand for and what Belong is all about. And we're going to take you through how we're doing this in the next segment here. So again, we're Belong building a hyper localized network. It starts in communities, but gets all knitted together through a digital platform. What we stand for, the word belong, is a perfect word for what we are, because we bring gamers together to be part of a community, to play together. We're all about inclusivity. We're all about accessibility, as I said. That's so important for building more infrastructure. We connect like-minded players, like-minded communities of players. We're 100% authentic to the gaming realm and individuality, and not only do we embrace it, we celebrate it as part of this our very welcoming environment around gaming. This is again to really support and to put into place so much that's lacking in building local infrastructure. Is we're building communities through these arenas. We're building communities of gamers that are very much a localized or a regionalized activation. However, as we build our footprint, all of these arenas will be knitted together. We have announced that we'll build 500 of these in the United States over the next 5 years, and already there are 27 of these up and operating in the UK. We're bringing over a proven model, and so this notion of not only a national, what could start as a community on a community basis and almost a neighborhood basis, can grow rather quickly once knitted all together. All these arenas in a digital network, and it transcends not just being national but international as well. I talked about these are both physical and digital implementations that we're bringing. It's all around the gaming experience that's high performance, not only in terms of the equipment that's in the arena, but also the aesthetic that's being that we're portraying, and as all of the activations for programming, for events, for tournaments, and it's not just competitive. I want to be clear about that. While competition's at our core, we're largely in place to bring to light the very social nature of playing games together in our arenas through our programming and our facilities. We really are offering gaming experience for everyone. As we attempt to, certainly our demographic focuses on the 14 to 24 year, but we go well beyond that from an age perspective, and certainly a gender and a cultural perspective as well. We couldn't do this obviously without having full support from the publishing partners that we work with, and in every one of these arenas we have esports pro team partnerships as well, to really organize around that energy for amateur to pro, path to pro, the grassroots to through the development stages to becoming an elite player, if that's in fact what a player wants to do. So we feel really strongly about the fact that we are now providing this infrastructure that's been largely lacking, both in a physical and a digital way. It's just to give a little more flavor of what we've seen come out of that and how people are engaging with the arenas. This is some of the behavior that we've witnessed coming out of the arenas in the UK. So coming over to the UK, coming over to the US from the UK, have a proven product that will be nuanced and customized for US audiences. But at its core, as I mentioned, competition community, again, a big part of the spirit of what we do is rooted in competition, but ultimately it's about building the community that wants to compete, wants to play competitively. But just as important, as I mentioned, the social aspects, fun with playing with your friends, really important part of how we've seen the arenas being used and invoked. Certainly, competition not as important, but no question, gaming is important. It's not just a hobby; it's a lifestyle. It's culture, and it's when these friends get together, it's the first thing that they want to do together. So our arenas also celebrate that. The private player refers to an individual who might be a lone wolf, maybe not play competitively, wants to come in and have access to the best equipment for playing RPGs or single player games. But that too has proven to be a big vertical for us from a youth perspective in the arenas. Time together, and this is now to the notion of more youth opportunities. The time together really refers to families coming in and playing together. The Belong arenas have been referred to as the new family room. Moms and dads bringing their kids in to play together. Gaming, as you saw in the demographics, now transcending so much in the way of age and demographics. So that's a big vertical for us as well. And because most of these arenas will be mall-based or strip mall-based, parents can feel completely comfortable dropping their kids off for a couple of hours while they're in the malls doing errands or having dinner or just running through doing shopping in the mall. So it really is something for everyone. But I represent again that the social aspects of either community competition or just playing together are really important parts of what we stand for and what these arenas are, how people are seeing the value. There's a lot here. I won't go through every single thing here, but this is how players come together and what they do while they're in our arenas. Every station has I talked about the performance aesthetic and the performance spirit of the arenas. Every station, there'll be 70 to 80 stations on average per arena. Everyone has a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, and a high-end PC. All of those are hireable. We try and drive as much involvement and engagement around memberships because there's a ton of value to being a member in terms of what the extras that come about from the value and the power of being a Belong member. Parties, birthday parties, adult parties, we have turnkey facilities for all of this. We have the staffing to do it, so very easy to host private events, obviously tournaments, not only simple tournaments, but for a sponsor, a brand wants to come in and create a tournament that is celebrating or highlighting their particular brand. Easy for us to do those. We talked about the pro teams that are a big part of our proposition. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Leaderboards, really celebrating again the players and those that who are advancing in terms of their skill sets and their ability to play in a more elite way. The big part of engagement around why players want to stay involved with us and continue to eke their reputations up the leaderboard. Retail, we have a very curated retail assortment per arena. Arena Clash refers to, as we've been talking about, what starts as a community event in a coordinated way throughout the entire network of arenas. Once we winnow down to the final teams on a per arena basis, those teams then go into an arena versus arena, hence the Arena Clash, where competitions are fierce, rivalries built between arenas, a big part of that local presence and celebrating the local presence and generating loyalty around the local presence that we are able to engender through this programming. It's one of our signature events, and we've done it with Call of Duty, with Overwatch, with Rocket League, with FIFA, with a number of different games. So really more ways to celebrate the local from local amateur, local community to up into the upper elite realm as the players advance through the structures. Community events, could be a game event, could be a trading card event. We have in all these arenas trading card games like Magic the Gathering and D&D, even Pokemon. So those are mobile game events where you don't need to be sitting at a station to take part in it yet. You want to be hanging out in a community area with your friends playing on a mobile game. Any number of ways to think about that in the arenas. Belong Academy refers to our curriculum of skills and strategy development for all the games that we support. We have those in place, delivered by an elite player. In many cases, they're delivered by one of the pro teams players that we've struck our partnership with. But it's not just around skills building a gaming perspective, it's also about skills building for things like becoming an influencer or becoming a caster or even a content creator. So all the academy curriculum, again, really meant to support the developmental player and to do so again on a very much a community and a localized basis. Launch events, all sorts of beta events or new product events, great environments for that. Influencers I mentioned, and then watch parties or viewing parties, a big part of how communities of players get their content. They're on Twitch, they're on YouTube, they're on Facebook Gaming, and our abilities to bring people together, communities together for big watch parties. Could be a big event, could be a regional event, could be a league event during the course of a season, but those are a big part of the activations that each of the arenas will generate as well. One of the things to harken back on what we're doing, the energy that we're bringing to building local communities is notion of every arena having its own identity, and this got started in our rollout in the UK and has proven to be amazingly sticky and engaging. That we will build a personality and a brand and a logo for each of the arenas, and that brand, that local personality, is really meant to evoke something from that particular neighborhood. The example I'll use is Manchester Swarm in the UK, Manchester, England. A big working class town. In Manchester, beekeeping is a thing. So easy to come up with what's a good logo and mascot for the Manchester Swarm. All of these are trademarked. All of these are we own all these. We make these logos and these brand because they're very engaging and become the team logos. The team, when I say a team, in Manchester, for example, there would be at this particular arena, there's a Call of Duty team, there's a League of Legends team, there's a FIFA team, and all of those teams though carry that logo and that brand. So it builds a ton of loyalty, it builds a ton of interest, and in the notion of the structure I just mentioned, arena clash, rivalries between arenas are also a big part of what's happening as a result of these personalities and these loyalties being built. So really big part of what we do, and we're bringing that over to the U.S. as we get our footprint starting as well. Again, more celebration and more recognition that the local presence is so important. We talked about arena clash already. Let's please move to the next slide. So as we get these local hubs being built, the communities being built in each of these arenas, we also, as I mentioned, have commercial partnerships with pro teams, and we've already announced a big partnership with Dallas Envy. Envy team is as a team in the Overwatch League. It's the Dallas Fuel. They have a team in the Call of Duty League. It's the Dallas Empire. They have a number of other pro teams as well. And we've announced a big partnership for them once we get our Dallas facility up and operating. And again, we're really engendering this notion of the pros being the inspiration for the communities and the local fan bases that we're building, that are the amateur communities or the developmental communities. And that two-way street is very, very valuable for us. As I mentioned, provides the inspiration, and for what we're doing, the inspiration for our players. For the pro teams, what we're doing is building a home for their fan activations, where the teams will come in and take part in training. We'll use our facilities for training, for fan meet and greets, for merchandise drops, for appearances. It really is an important part of this two-way energy, the inspiration for us, and then for our value to them, helping them build more engaged fan bases, giving them a home-based turnkey facilities again to come in and take part in. Most teams are selling a ton of merchandise that celebrates no different than a traditional sports team. But so if you think about most of these teams don't have home bases. So the fact that we have a home base, 7 day a week. There's presence for merchandise and a home for their team merchandise. Also, a really important part of the value that we're providing to our pro team partners. We're going to just take you quickly through some of the facilities here. This is a good example of a main entrance to Belong. You can see the heavy use of the chevrons. That chevron is a big part of our branding element, really to invite players in, showing them we're accessible and to come into a Belong. The subtext there being watch, play, compete. Those are essentially what we offer and what we promote within the arenas. Again, you can see kind of a cool aesthetic there. We'll take you through. These are renderings for the setup. The upper left is the desk setup I described earlier. So at each one of those desks, a PlayStation, an Xbox, and a PC. This looks right up the middle of the arena. On the upper right quadrant, that's a stage that are in the larger arenas. This is meant to host signature events. There's seating on either side, but you can see the desks, the participant desks, the player competitor desks there facing into the arena. Obviously a lot of video, so it can be broadcast and seen by everybody in the arena. Community, as I talked about, the notion of these as community hubs. We've engineered a lot of community space as well in each of these arenas. Private spaces too for parties. The lower right, a good sense of each room has a set of 12 desks to play against one another. Upper left is the stage again. More community space on the upper right. The lower left is a good illustration of a pro room. These can be opened up to be very accessible. They can be closed up if the pro team wants to have a private event and a private training facility. So again, big parts of this notion of us providing home bases for the pro teams, more couch play and social space. I mentioned the notion of content creators using our spaces, the notion of influencers coming, casters who are trying to hone their skills or build their skills around becoming a caster. We have the turnkey facilities again within the arena. Most arenas will have 2 streaming booths. The smaller ones will have a single streaming booth, but a really important part again of how we help players, not just from a gaming perspective, but also the peripheral activities around being a gamer. So again, this is sort of the punchline here, is that what has been largely lacking for infrastructure, for local presence, and for organization around helping local presence have a connection to the more elite play opportunities. This is what we stand for. Our sister company, our brother company, is Esports Engine. Some of you may know Esports Engine have done a lot of work in the live event production space. I would say, maybe I'm a little biased, but I would say they're best in class. They are known for very signature events, did most of the homestand events before the pandemic shut everything down for the Call of Duty League teams, for the Overwatch League teams. Also, probably one of the more famous events in the recent past was the Fortnite World Cup at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Esports Engine produced all of that. It really has become a signature event and a bellwether moment in competitive gaming. So as we represent more the casual, the amateur, the developmental side, they really represent the pro side of things. And our marriage and our familial relationship, of course, now we do represent the complete esports ecosystem, and building the notion of local energy, local presence into that of not only more national and international presence, but also more elite play as well. I think that is this picture sums it up well. This is exactly the aspiration we are garnering. You can see the young man there, completely in awe of what he's seeing within the arena, and he's not too young to come in and take part, which we're hoping is going to happen as we get our rollout up and running in the U.S. I've left there for my contact information. Happy to engage with everybody on email. That's my Twitter handle. I am on LinkedIn, and in fact, quite active on LinkedIn. So I'm the only Wim Stocks on LinkedIn. So if you're interested in connecting with me there, I'd be happy to connect as well.
I can vouch for the fact that Wim is very active on LinkedIn. I see you daily. So we've got a lot of good questions here. We've got about 10 minutes to run through these, so I'll just get it kicked off here. So what is your opinion about speedrunning being a part of esports?
I think it's pretty cool. Learning more and more about it, and I think it could be a big part of what esports competitions are. The cool thing I think is about it. It can be you could break it down like just about any game to have some sort of aspect of speed running. So I think it's a cool. I think it's a really cool dynamic, and we don't. I frankly, I've not had any personal involvement with it. I've read a lot about it and seen a lot about it, but I think it's cool. Just another way to engage around competitive video gaming, and I think it's a very cool thing.
It's fascinating because that is my 9-year-old's latest craze is speed running. So so how do you feel about the current diversity in games that are in esports, and do you think it should be upscaled or downscaled?
I'm not sure if I understand the complete. You're talking about the diversity, the kinds of games that are in esports, and it should be upscaled or downscaled. I think that there is a lot of different kinds of play and a lot of different kinds of esports. I think the big PC games, the MOBAs, the League of Legends, global phenomenon. Obviously, Counter-Strike, global phenomenon. PC games lend themselves to more access just because more people have PCs. So, I really like the categories that have emerged between MOBAs and first-person shooters and the sports sims and driving. Now driving becoming a bigger thing. Fighting games. Mobile game as a platform. I think there's plenty of diversity. That what I think is so cool is that a new game comes out, game like Among Us or Fall Guys that may not really be competitive, but they're put into this notion of big community opportunities that in some regards they're competitive on some level. They're not the full esport support or mechanism, say like the League of Legends or Call of Duty, Overwatch for that matter. But I think there's plenty of diversity of games. I think there's going to be still more categories that come. I hope I'm answering the question properly. I don't see any need to downscale. I think the more kinds of games that come into our realm, the more participation there's going to be, and that to me is just not a bad thing at all.
So next one, what do you think of Nintendo's handling of esports?
Well, that's a really good question. It's interesting, and we have a lot of good friends at Nintendo. We work with them closely, and I think it's safe to say, without speaking too far out of school, that they don't think esports is on brand for them. They think that esports sort of brings out this competitive, and I again, this is my opinion. This is nothing that's been articulated to me, but I think that, and here, look at what Smash has done. It's not only is a great game, but the community of competitive play around Smash is amazing. I think Mario Kart could be a huge esport, but I do think that the competitive aspects and sort of the element around competition is not necessarily what Nintendo is comfortable celebrating at this point. So they certainly can't deny that Smash is a worldwide phenomenon and such a cool community. What they and how before there was Smash Ultimate, with people bringing their CRTs and their Nintendo 64s to play. That wasn't supported by Nintendo. That was purely community driven. That was purely the energy of the community bringing that to light. And you can't argue that to me is just one of the greatest things ever. But I do think that they'll come around. I know they will. They're great, smart people. They'll get there. But I think esports is going to have to develop a little bit more for them to be more comfortable in diving in with both feet.
That one always amazes me because Smash goes back to, I mean, almost like one of the original esport. And you have that much passion, and Nintendo's just like, I don't think so. So we got a couple from Thomas Gross. How does Belong have to pay royalties to publishers to use their games? If so, how does the fee structure work? And then there's a follow-up that we'll get to after that.
Well, that Tom Gross. Hi, Tom. Nice to Tom helped me get involved in this event. Tom and I used to work together. So, in our structure, because what we do is really viewed as discovery. You know, we are as we equip our arenas with all the equipment and have the game copies at each of the arenas. We're really viewed as discovery and marketing for the events and engagement. So in most cases, we're not having to pay royalties to publishers, but and we also have great partnerships with the platform side, with the Sonys of the world, who also see the value of what Belong does to bring their experience to players, to the masses, especially in this developmental world that we're targeting, that we live. This is all about the big open funnel, getting more players involved, getting more players engaged with a particular game or on a particular platform, and both the publishers and the platforms see the value that we're bringing. It is a big topic, and it's a big opportunity, but that's for now we're that's the value that we're delivering, and most of the publishers and platforms see that value in what we're doing.
And Tom's follow-up question: what's the size, the capacity of the arenas?
These arenas are somewhere between the 5,000 and 15,000 square foot realm. So these aren't 10,000 people arenas. These are arenas that are mostly about participation. As I mentioned, on average, 70 to 80 play stations. Well, there will be PlayStations, but the desk where the PCs and the Xboxes and the PlayStations are set up, there's 70 to 80 on average per arena. Some arenas go as high as 120, some as low as 60, but by and large, they're in that realm. And just in terms of capacity, so between players, and if we have a big signature event with a big watch party, I think it's safe to expect on the large sides that we can have up to 400 to 500 people in the arenas, either participating or taking part in viewing parties.
All right, and so last question for you: what are the base qualifications of a game to be viable as an esport, in your opinion?
Well, I think that's a really great question, and not the first time I've answered that, but I think the base qualification is, there's a couple ways to answer it. Number one, it's got to be competitive, of course. There's got to be a clear winner, clear loser in as bad as nobody wants to be a loser, but I think it's ultimately not it's not us or me or the publishers who decide if a game is an esport. It's really the community of players who's playing that game. And seen the road kind of littered with games that they made proclamation, yep, we're going to be the next big esport. And guess what? The community that we're targeting didn't embrace it, and or wasn't the right kind of game, or it wasn't engaging of a game. So it didn't resonate, and ultimately didn't work as an esport. So I would answer it that we, the publisher, can make every intention of making a next big esport game, but ultimately it's the community of players that will decide if it's a good game, number one, and if it's a good esport, number two.
Well, Wim, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day to come and talk. This is fascinating, and we're looking forward to see how esports grows in the future. we're going to let you go. We've got our next guest lined up. It's going to be Josh Fairhurst talking about how failure is not the end. But thank you as always, and I hope you have a wonderful day, man.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Talk soon. Thank you all.